A love story that ended quietly. October 26, 2025, Nashville, Tennessee. Keith Urban stared at his birthday cake. There were 58 candles on it, but something felt wrong. Nobody was laughing. Nobody said, "Make a wish." Nicole wasn't there. For 19 years, Nicole Kidman was always with him. She was the woman who stood by him through good times and bad. She helped him when he was struggling. She was his best friend. But now, for the first time in almost 20 years, Keith's birthday came without her. The news said they separated gracefully. But Keith felt sad. He looked at the cake for a long time. He was waiting for her hand to reach out and help him blow out the candles. But she never came. Outside, people still loved his music. The radio played his songs. Everyone thought Keith was fine, but the truth was different. He was tired. He was sad. Even though he smiled for cameras, his eyes told a different story. The beginning. Keith was born in New Zealand, then moved to Australia when he was little. His family didn't have much money. His dad sold signs and brought home old country music records, Johnny Cash, Don Williams. Keith loved those songs. When Keith was 6, his dad gave him a guitar. The strings hurt his fingers at first, but he practiced every day. Music became his safe place. Keith was a quiet kid. He wasn't loud or popular. He was the boy who counted seconds and thought about music. When other kids talked about sports, Keith imagined new songs. His mom took him to talent shows. He wore boots that were too big. When he played, everyone stopped talking and listened. That's when Keith learned something important: music can make people believe in something special. Home wasn't always easy. Keith learned to read the room and understand feelings without words. That's why his songs later touched people's hearts. He understood how people felt. Keith did small jobs to buy guitar strings. There was one guitar in the music shop he couldn't afford. He would stand in front of it and promise himself, "One day, I'll get you." An older musician taught him, "Don't force the music, just lean into it." That advice helped Keith his whole life. Chasing the dream. When Keith turned 20, he moved to Sydney. He played anywhere: bars, cafes, bowling clubs. Sometimes only 2 people listened. Sometimes nobody did. But he always played like the world was watching. He lived in small, dusty rooms. Some weeks he didn't have money for the bus, so he walked to his shows. His guitar strap cut into his shoulder, but he was happy because he was following his dream. In the early 1990s, Keith formed a band called The Ranch. They played in small halls. Not many people came, but they played their hearts out. Radio hosts started noticing him. Then Nashville called. By 1998, Keith flew to America, the place where all his music heroes came from. Nashville was hard. Every corner had another guitar player. Keith worked harder than everyone. When others went to parties, he practiced. When others slept, he wrote songs. In 1999, his first American album came out. Songs like "But for the Grace of God" played on the radio everywhere. Keith Urban had made it. The dark times. But success was hard too. Keith started drinking too much. He wanted to forget his loneliness. The boy who once loved his guitar was now trying to forget his problems with alcohol. Friends were worried. Keith smiled on the outside but was falling apart inside. Meeting Nicole. Then in 2005, everything changed. Keith went to a party in Los Angeles. That's where he saw Nicole Kidman. She was wearing a gold dress and laughing. When their eyes met, it felt like the whole room went quiet. They started talking. She told him about feeling lonely. He told her about his music. Both understood what it was like to live under bright lights. They started dating. They rode motorcycles together. They talked late at night on porches. She was a famous movie star. He was a country singer, but they fit together perfectly. When Keith told her about his drinking problems, she didn't leave. She said, "We'll face it together." On June 25, 2006, they got married in Sydney. He sang to her that night. Keith felt like all his mistakes were forgiven. For a while, love saved him. The happy years. Keith got clean and stopped drinking. His music got even better. Songs like Somebody Like You and Days Go By became huge hits. Nicole was proud of him. They built a beautiful home in Nashville with rolling green fields. In 2008, their daughter Sunday Rose was born. In 2010, Faith Margaret was born. Keith wrote lullabies for them. Life was good. He won Grammys. He toured the world. Nicole made movies. From the outside, they looked perfect. The cracks. But perfect is hard to keep. Keith was touring more and more. Nicole was filming movies all over the world. They were together less and less. They still loved each other, but they were busy. When magazines asked about their marriage, I said, "We talk, we forgive, we choose each other every day." Both statements were true, but it was getting harder. By 2020, they were home more because of the lockdown. For a moment, they almost found each other again. But then the world opened up and they got busy again. The end. By 2024, the fairy tale was fading. Not because of fights or cheating, just because they were tired. Keith was touring. Nicole was filming in Europe. When they talked on the phone, it felt different. They still loved each other, but something was missing. On June 20, 2025, they went to a soccer game together. They smiled and held hands for photos. The newspapers said, "Still going strong after 19 years." But 5 days later, on their anniversary, Nicole posted one picture on Instagram with their hands. Keith left a heart emoji. That was it. On September 30, 2025, Nicole filed for divorce. The papers said irreconcilable differences. That's a fancy way of saying they couldn't fix what was broken. After the divorce, life didn't stop. On October 17, Keith had a concert in Nashville. Thousands of fans came. They wanted to see if he was okay. Keith walked on stage with his guitar. He sang "You'll Think of Me." When he got to one part, he changed the words slightly. The crowd gasped. People recorded it. He looked up and said, "I've been singing it like this for a long time. Stop reading into it." But everyone knew he was singing about Nicole. Later, a fan yelled, "My name is Nicole." Keith laughed, then fell backward on the stage like he was fainting. Everyone laughed, but it was a sad kind of laugh. On October 26, his birthday, Keith didn't have a party. He played a small show in a quiet theater. Halfway through, he whispered, "Thank you for listening." What really happened? Their love didn't end with screaming or fighting. It ended quietly, like fog disappearing in the morning. They didn't hate each other. They just stopped being in sync. Nicole would come home from filming and Keith was touring. When Keith came home, Nicole was already gone to another movie set. They tried to fix it. They had long dinners. They talked about old times, but it felt like they were acting, not living. Friends said they were still kind to each other. They just weren't living the same life anymore. The truth. There was no scandal, no bad guy, just two people who loved each other but couldn't make it work anymore. Keith poured his feelings into his music. Nicole kept working on her films. Both were tired. Their daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, saw it all. They loved both parents. They knew the love wasn't gone, it was just changing. Nicole and Keith made a promise. They would never say bad things about each other. Not in public, not in private, not to their daughters. They both knew the only audience that really mattered was their kids. Moving forward. Late one night in December 2025, during a concert in Denver, Keith stopped mid-song. He said, "This next one's about holding on." His voice cracked. Then he smiled a little and added, "Even when you know it's time to let go." The crowd cheered, but Keith was really saying, "I forgive you, I forgive myself." There were no villains, just two people who loved each other enough to stop before love turned to anger. The end and beginning. One November evening, Keith sat alone in his studio. His guitar was on his lap. He didn't play, he just thought about the last 19 years. He thought about the first time Nicole laughed, the first fight, the births of their daughters. The night she told him he was worth saving, he still believed it. He once said, "I don't make songs about endings, I make songs about continuing." So he picked up his guitar and started to play. No cameras, no audience, just a man and his music. The next morning, Keith walked by the river. The sun was rising. He thought about Nicole wherever she was, maybe filming, maybe home with the girls, maybe by the sea. He didn't wish her back, he wished her peace. They had built something beautiful together, two daughters with her smile and his stubborn heart. Songs that would last forever, and a quiet respect that refused to die, even when love did. That night Keith performed again, a small show, just him, a stool, and a room full of strangers. He played old songs. Halfway through he stopped and said, "It's strange how songs grow up with you." The crowd was silent. Then he smiled, a real peaceful smile. When the show ended, Keith stood on stage as the lights went dark. He imagined Nicole somewhere, hearing one of their songs on the radio. Maybe she'd smile too. Because love doesn't disappear, it just changes address. Keith turned 58 this year. The papers said it was his first birthday without Nicole. But maybe that's not true. Maybe she was still there in the notes, the words, the pauses between verses. He blew out the candle on a small cupcake. No party, no champagne, just a quiet wish. It all means something. Then he picked up his guitar again, and the music, faithful as ever, answered back. Because the road goes on forever, and for Keith Urban, the music never ends.